Chloe Bennett had always been the kind of person people leaned on. As the eldest daughter in the Bennett family of Cedar Hill, Oregon, she grew up hearing her father's words on repeat, "Family comes first." As a child, those words made her feel safe. But as an adult, she realized that loyalty sometimes came at the cost of one's youth and future. Her father, Robert Bennett, once ran a small but thriving construction business. Her mother, Linda, worked steadily as an administrative assistant at the local high school. The Bennetts had enjoyed a comfortable life, family dinners, summer trips to the lake, weekends spent repairing the backyard fence. Chloe, 7 years older than her sister Madison, held those memories like treasures. But in 2008, the financial crash swept in like a storm. Robert's company collapsed under canceled contracts. Linda's health took a turn when she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, often unable to drive on bad days. The family remortgaged the house 3 times. Chloe, then a college student, dropped her on-campus job to return home and help. She switched to online classes, took on 2 part-time jobs, and tried to shield Madison, then still in middle school, from the unraveling behind closed doors. Chloe became a coupon expert, stretching every dollar. She drove Madison to school, cooked dinner, handled her mom's medical forms, and held the emotional weight no 20-year-old should have to bear. She was no longer just a student, she had become the family's emergency engine. Meanwhile, Madison remained blissfully insulated. She received a new phone each year, a used Jeep for her sweet 16, and never worried about tuition or utility bills. Chloe never resented her. She believed Madison deserved the childhood she never had. After earning her degree in computer science from Stonemont University, Chloe landed a job at Helix Code Technologies. Smart and driven, she climbed the ranks quickly and was earning 6 figures by 25. But instead of investing in her future, Chloe turned her income toward patching the family's broken foundation. She never told anyone she was paying the electricity, water, or internet bills still in her parents' names funded by her account. When her mom's condition worsened, Chloe quietly covered the rising medical costs. When Madison got into a prestigious private college with a $45,000 year price tag, Chloe stepped in. Quietly. Completely. For 3 years, Chloe funneled over $70,000 annually, nearly 2/3 of her take-home pay, to keep the family afloat. She pretended groceries were left over from work events, presented expensive gifts as if they were from her parents, and pitched in with home repairs as if just being a helpful daughter. She asked for no thanks. She believed her family's happiness was reward enough. Until one day, the same family she sacrificed everything for turned on her over a missing necklace and a lie that shattered everything. If Chloe was the beam holding up the collapsing roof, then Madison Bennett was the princess who never noticed the ceiling was cracking. Madison grew up in the same house in Cedar Hill, but lived in a completely different world. While Chloe was juggling college assignments, part-time jobs, and hospital visits for their mother, Madison was busy choosing lipstick shades, filming TikToks, and dreaming about the diamond necklace she hoped to get for her 21st birthday. It wasn't Madison's fault she grew up sheltered. It was a deliberate decision made by their parents, Robert and Linda Bennett. After enduring the financial crash, medical bills, and overwhelming debt, they swore that at least one of their children would have a normal childhood. And that child was Madison. They hid every hardship from her, along with the thousands Chloe contributed. Madison didn't know the house had been remortgaged 3 times. She didn't know her pricey private university tuition wasn't covered by her parents, but by Chloe. She believed the MacBook Pro she got for her birthday was from Mom and Dad, unaware Chloe had bought it. In her eyes, their family was fine. If anything felt off, it was because Chloe was too serious or too distant. She wasn't malicious, just unaware, and she never asked questions. When everything came easily, she learned to expect it. She didn't notice her entitlement growing or that Chloe working 60-hour weeks was always the one behind the scenes. At family dinners, she sometimes rolled her eyes when Chloe voiced concerns about spending. On social media, she'd post photos with designer bags bought with what she called scholarship extras, not knowing it was Chloe's money, and caption them "best parents ever." She didn't know those captions made Chloe stare at her phone in silence before heading off to work another late-night shift. But what truly drove the wedge wasn't just the imbalance, it was the quiet comparison. Robert often praised Madison for being so cheerful, always makes us smile. Linda would comment, "She reminds me of myself when I was younger, sweet and charming." Chloe, ever independent and reserved, was gradually seen as the distant one. No one said it aloud, but every glance, every side comment slowly pushed Chloe to the margins. And Madison, though she never asked for favoritism, never challenged it either. That silence, that subtle acceptance was what widened the gulf between them. Chloe once believed that giving enough would earn understanding, but Madison never understood because she never had to, until a necklace went missing and suspicion fell on the sister who had carried everything without ever asking for credit. Chloe had never been one to care about expensive jewelry, but she knew Madison did. For Madison, every accessory was a statement, and the $8,000 white gold diamond necklace she spotted at Alara Jewelry and Comber downtown became her fixation for weeks. "It's an investment piece," Madison said during one of their Sunday dinners. "Something I'll keep forever and maybe pass down to my daughter one day." Linda stared into her water glass, and Robert offered a strained smile. Chloe remained quiet, watching. She'd grown used to Madison's subtle hints, the way she planted her desires and waited for someone else to fulfill them. And she'd also grown used to being that someone. A week later, Chloe got a call from her father. "Hey, Chloe, can you help us out?" His voice faltered. "It's about Madison's birthday gift." He didn't need to say more. Chloe already knew which gift he meant. "How much is it?" she asked. "About $8,000, but it's special. You know her 21st. Chloe didn't ask for promises, didn't demand payback, didn't question it. Within an hour, the money was transferred. She told no one it came from her. Not a word. Madison's 21st was held at a high-end Italian restaurant downtown, complete with candles, white roses, and a custom menu. Chloe sat beneath the warm lighting and watched as Madison opened the blue velvet box. A shriek of delight pierced the air. "Oh my God, Mom, Dad. It's the necklace. I can't believe it." Robert beamed, fastening it around her neck. Madison held up a mirror, eyes shining with happy tears. "I'm so lucky to have parents like you," she said. "No one else would have done this for me." Chloe smiled, raised her glass, and quietly took a few photos. In those pictures, Madison glowed. Her parents beamed. And Chloe, she was the one behind the lens. Back at home, Chloe checked her savings account. The number had dipped again. She told herself one day they'll know. One day they'll understand. And that recognition, that would be enough. But that night, all she received was a text from Madison. "Still can't believe Mom and Dad did that. They're amazing." Chloe read it twice, then put the phone down. Quietly, Sunday dinner at the Bennetts used to be sacred. No matter how hectic the week had been, everyone showed up at 6 p.m., seated around the old oak dining table with the familiar aroma of Linda's enchiladas filling the house. For Chloe, it was one of the few moments where the family still felt whole despite the cracks beneath the surface. That evening started like any other. Chloe arrived early to help her mom prepare their signature salsa verde enchiladas. Madison and their dad were in the living room watching a basketball game, shouting at the screen in bursts of laughter. But the mood shifted abruptly when Madison suddenly put down her fork. "Has anyone seen my necklace?" she asked, instinctively touching her bare neck. "The diamond one from my birthday. Are you sure you put it away?" Linda asked gently, her voice tinged with concern. "Of course," Madison replied. "It's always in the blue velvet box. I'm careful with it." Chloe looked up, eyebrows drawn together. She knew how much that necklace meant to Madison, not just in value, but in the meaning Madison had attached to it as a marker of how loved she was. "When was the last time you wore it?" Chloe asked. "Last Saturday at Melissa's party. I'm positive I put it back." Robert frowned. "You were a little tipsy that night." "Maybe you forgot." "I wasn't that drunk," Madison snapped. "I remember being extra careful." Dinner came to a halt. Everyone scattered to search the house. Chloe followed Madison upstairs, checking drawers under cushions and pockets and handbags, even in the bathroom. But the necklace was gone. Tension grew with every passing minute. Chloe noticed Madison watching her closely, like a detective tracking a suspect. When Chloe offered to check the laundry room, Madison quickly said, "I already did," though Chloe knew she hadn't. An hour later, they returned to the table. The food was cold. No one ate. Then Madison spoke softly, but with a sharpness that cut through the silence. "You got here before me today, right, Chloe? I thought I saw you coming out of my room when I was upstairs." Chloe froze. "I just used the bathroom. I didn't go into your room." "Well, my door was open," Madison replied, eyes fixed on her. "Maybe Mom went in to drop off laundry," Chloe suggested. "I didn't do any laundry today," Linda said quietly. The implication hung in the air like fog. No one accused Chloe directly, but the suggestion was as loud as a shout. "Madison," Chloe said calmly, "if you're implying something, say it." "But I didn't take anything." Madison shrugged, but her eyes were hard. "I'm just trying to figure out what happened. It's an $8,000 necklace. It doesn't just vanish. And it didn't walk into my pocket either," Chloe replied, holding back the anger rising in her throat. Robert cleared his throat. "No one's accusing you, Chloe, but it is a little odd. It disappeared the day you were here." He trailed off, but the damage was done. Chloe felt her chest tighten. After everything, after paying tuition, covering medical bills, and keeping the lights on, was one missing necklace enough to erase all of that? She said nothing more. Just sat there staring at the faces of the people she once believed would always have her back. Chloe drove away from her parents' house that night with a strange sensation pressing against her chest. It wasn't anger, not the explosive kind. It was hollowness, as if something inside her had been quietly drained. She had believed that years of silent sacrifice would at least earn her one thing, trust. But it hadn't. One missing necklace, and all eyes had turned to her. Back at her apartment, Chloe sat motionless in her car for what felt like hours. The engine was off the street quiet, her hands still gripping the wheel. She replayed every moment from dinner, trying to understand how the family she carried for so long could look at her and see a thief. Close to midnight, her phone buzzed. A message from Madison. "I've looked everywhere. Still nothing. If you took it as a joke, it's not funny. Just give it back." Chloe read it, typed a reply, deleted it, and finally settled on, "I didn't take the necklace, Madison. I would never do that." Another message came instantly. "Mom and Dad are really upset." And so it continued. Not angry, not hysterical, but worse, certain. Chloe's innocence was no longer a question. In Madison's mind, it was a fact that she had taken it. By morning, several missed calls blinked across her screen, both parents. Instead of texting back, Chloe drove to their house. She still believed that talking face-to-face could resolve the misunderstanding. But when she walked in, the atmosphere was off. Her mother washed dishes with tight shoulders. Her father sat at the kitchen table, untouched coffee beside a folded newspaper. "Where's Madison?" Chloe asked, forcing her voice to sound normal. "Upstairs. Been turning her room upside down all morning," Robert said coldly. "I just want to be clear," Chloe began. "I didn't take it. I didn't even go into her room." Before she could finish, Madison appeared holding up the familiar blue velvet box, empty. "Then how do you explain this?" she said. "I found it in your old room under the bookshelf." Time seemed to stop. Chloe stared at it. "That's impossible. I haven't even stepped foot in that room in weeks." "Well, it didn't crawl there by itself," Robert snapped. I have no reason to do this, Chloe insisted, her voice shaking with restraint. If I wanted a necklace, I could afford my own. Then who would do this? Robert countered. Who else had a reason? Chloe scanned the room. No one defended her. Her mother looked down. Madison stood back, a strange expression on her face, not fear, not sadness. Satisfaction. And in that moment, Chloe understood this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. And the worst part, no one chose to believe her. Deep down, Chloe had already suspected something was off the way. Madison watched her, the accusatory midnight texts, her father's cold voice saying, "Don't come back until you're ready to tell the truth." But when the empty velvet jewelry box was suddenly found in her old bedroom, everything clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Her father stood up abruptly, holding the box like it was a smoking gun. Still going to deny it? He asked, voice trembling with fury. I didn't put it there, Chloe shot back. I haven't even been in that room in weeks. So it walked in on its own, Robert snapped. Maybe someone else put it there, Madison, for instance. Chloe fired back, her patience breaking. Madison gasped, feigning offense. Why would I do that? I love that necklace. Their mother stood by the sink, wringing a towel in her hands, but saying nothing. Chloe looked to her, searching for support, but Linda averted her gaze. Her silence was answer enough. Robert stepped closer. Chloe, if you're having money troubles, you could have just said so. You didn't have to steal from your own family. The irony nearly made Chloe laugh. She was the one paying their mortgage every month, covering her sister's college tuition, handling her mother's medical bills. And now she was the one being called a thief for a necklace she had paid for herself. Without a word, Chloe pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. Within moments, she authorized the next $3,000 mortgage payment due in 3 days. No one noticed. While the family debated whether she had stolen from them, Chloe was still keeping the roof over their heads. I don't need to steal anything, she said calmly, slipping the phone back into her bag. I've been supporting this entire household for 3 years. Don't twist the story, Robert replied sharply. Fact is, that box was in your room. It didn't get there by magic. Then check the security camera, Chloe suggested. The room fell silent. A year earlier, after a neighborhood car theft, the family had installed basic home surveillance, paid for, of course, by Chloe. Reluctantly, Robert opened his laptop and pulled up the footage. They watched the timestamp. Chloe arrived at 4 p.m., carrying nothing but a bag of groceries. She left at 9 p.m. with only her phone and purse. No box. Nothing suspicious. Madison jumped in. She could have hidden the necklace in her purse, just the necklace. My purse is too small. If I stuffed the box in there, it would have bulged like crazy, Chloe countered. The room remained still. But Chloe noticed something unsettling. Madison hadn't backed off. She could have just taken the chain, not the whole box. Robert rubbed his temples. Linda stayed silent. Even with the footage clearing her name, the cloud of doubt hadn't lifted. Chloe realized then they weren't looking for the truth. They were looking for a version of reality that made their discomfort easier to bear. And to them, the idea that Chloe, the perfect one, might have betrayed them, that narrative was somehow more believable than her innocence, that she thought was more painful than any accusation. Chloe stood silently at the front door, hand clutching her purse, feeling as if she wasn't just walking away from a house, but from an entire era of her life. She had always believed that no matter how hard things got, family was home. But in that moment, as her father said the final words, "Leave and don't come back until you're ready to admit the truth," she knew with certainty she no longer belonged here. She turned and walked slowly down the steps. Behind her, the door shut softly. No one followed. No one called her back. Her mother kept her head down, as if silently agreeing that Chloe no longer had a place in this family. As she opened her car door, Chloe instinctively glanced up. In the second-story window, she saw a figure, Madison. Their eyes met for a moment. In her sister's expression, there was no guilt. No remorse, just a cold, satisfied smirk. Icy, calculated. Chloe didn't turn on the radio, didn't make a phone call. She just drove, letting the steady hum of the engine dull the chaos in her chest. A few blocks away, she pulled over on a quiet side street. Alone in the one space that was truly hers, her car, Chloe finally let herself fall apart. She cried, not because of the necklace, not even because of the accusation, but because for the first time she saw her place in the family with perfect clarity, a walking wallet, a silent provider, a source of money not meaning. Since the age of 25, Chloe had carried her entire family financially, without them even realizing she was quietly unraveling inside. She once believed that if she gave enough, they would eventually see her. But the truth was far more painful: they never did. And worse, once the money came with questions, she became a threat. Disposable. Even her mother, the one who used to hold her when kids were cruel, had stayed silent. Not a word in her defense, not even a glance of concern. And that Chloe realized was what hurt most. Love without respect isn't love, it's control. She sat in her car for a long time, waiting for the tears to stop. Then with steady hands, she opened her phone. One by one, she scanned through the upcoming automatic payments, Madison's tuition, the mortgage, utility bills. And for the first time, she didn't pay them. She knew she was about to enter a battle not with her family, but with the part of herself that had written unspoken rules for years. That love means unconditional giving. That responsibility means never walking away. But now Chloe understood something different. No one has the right to demand your sacrifice, then abandon you when all you need is to be believed. Chloe didn't scream. She didn't bang on doors or call up relatives to explain herself. She didn't need to. The truth had always been there. Her family just chose not to see it. And if they refused to open their eyes, then she would show them the facts in the one language they couldn't ignore: numbers and evidence. The next morning, Chloe sat down with her laptop and opened a spreadsheet. She didn't just list the expenses, she organized them chronologically. Monthly mortgage payments, $3,000. Madison Stonemont University tuition, $15,000 per semester. Utility bills under her parents' names paid from her account. Medical bills for her mother, mostly uncovered by insurance. Birthday gifts, a laptop, an old car, and yes, the $8,000 necklace. Total over $370,000 in 3 years. The number made Chloe go still. She had never seen the full scope of her sacrifice laid out so clearly. And in that moment, the guilt vanished. She stopped wondering if she was being too harsh. Instead, she wondered why it had taken her 3 years to say no. She printed everything: bank transfers, invoices, tuition receipts, medical statements, and placed them neatly in a binder labeled financial contributions. Chloe Bennett, 2020-2023. Then she wrote a letter. No drama, no anger, just truth. Dear Mom and Dad, after what's happened, I need to clarify a few things. For the past 3 years, I've covered this family's mortgage, utilities, tuition, medical bills, and more. I didn't do it for recognition, I did it out of love. But when that love is repaid with suspicion and accusations, I have no choice but to set boundaries. As of today, all financial support from me has ended. I have no legal obligation, and now I no longer feel a moral one. The enclosed documents are proof of my contributions. If after reviewing them you still believe I stole the necklace, then perhaps there is truly nothing more to say. She dropped the binder and letter into her parents' mailbox. No heads up. No waiting for a thank you. A few days later, her phone buzzed. Her father. His voice was livid. What the hell is this, Chloe? Some kind of threat? No, just clarity and closure. This family depends on that money. You're seriously cutting us off. Chloe inhaled deeply. For once, her voice didn't waver. I've taken care of everyone for 3 years quietly, But when you looked me in the eye and called me a liar and a thief, that support ended. I don't owe anyone anything anymore." There was a pause. Then her father asked quieter, "You mean?" "Madison made this whole thing up." "I'm not saying that," Chloe replied calmly. "I'm just saying the necklace never left the house. And I did." After the final phone call with her father, Chloe sat still in her quiet apartment. She didn't cry. She wasn't angry. She simply felt peaceful. It was a strange sensation, but real enough that it caught her off guard. For 3 years, Chloe had lived like an unlimited ATM for people who never once checked the balance. She had provided endlessly, no contracts, no expectations, no protection. And when that generosity was twisted into suspicion, Chloe realized silence is complicity when abuse wears the mask of love. She opened her laptop again. One by one, she began canceling every automatic payment. Mortgage, canceled. Madison's tuition, canceled. Utilities, canceled. With each confirmation, she forwarded the receipts to her private email and saved them in a folder titled Boundaries 2023. This wasn't revenge. It was closure. A clear end to a cycle that had fed on guilt and silence. Hours later, the texts from Madison flooded in. "What the hell are you doing? The school just called about unpaid tuition. You know I can't afford this. The least you could do is give a warning." Chloe read every message. She didn't reply. She no longer owed explanations to someone who had framed her and then played the victim. Then came messages from her mother. This time not demands, but pleading. "You can't do this to your family. We're blood. Your father had to request a payroll advance. I know you're upset, but please, think this through." But Chloe wasn't upset. She was clear. For the first time, she saw the entire structure, one that leaned on her completely without ever granting her authority. That wasn't a family dynamic, it was a dependency trap. And for the first time in her life, Chloe chose herself. She rewrote the rules. No payments without clear agreements. No support without full transparency. No conversations that start with guilt and end with Chloe being the default villain. In the days that followed, silence filled the space where manipulation used to live. No more phone calls, no more texts. But Chloe knew it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of a system reeling from the loss of its power source. And she didn't feel guilty for unplugging it. In the weeks following her decision to cut off support, Chloe entered a kind of quiet she hadn't known in years. No phone calls asking for money, no midnight guilt trips, no manipulative messages masked as concern. At first, the silence felt hollow, but slowly it transformed into space to breathe, to hear her own thoughts, to evaluate which relationships nourished her and which had drained her dry. For the first time in years, Chloe began caring for herself. She joined a Tuesday night painting class, an old college hobby she had shelved under the excuse of not enough time. She took early morning walks. She cooked dinners just for herself, no longer rushing through meals between paying other people's bills. She dusted off books she had abandoned, books about boundaries, self-respect, and healing. And in those pages, Chloe realized something powerful. The betrayal didn't destroy her, it freed her. It forced her to wake up, to see clearly. She had once believed family meant enduring, sacrificing, carrying burdens quietly because that's what a daughter does. But now she understood real family doesn't require you to shatter yourself just to keep them whole. So Chloe began redefining what family meant to her. It was no longer about blood. It was about people who showed up with honesty and respect. Family was the former coworker who texted her out of the blue just to ask, "Are you okay? You've been missed." It was the elderly neighbor who left a bag of cookies on her doorstep with a sticky note, "Cold morning today. Eat these to stay warm." It was the yoga instructor at her evening class who knew nothing of Chloe's story, but still looked her in the eye after each session and said, "You're doing amazing. Keep going." These people unrelated by blood were now the ones helping her build a new definition of family, one chosen, not assigned. And with that, Chloe no longer felt lonely. She felt free. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Chloe heard the doorbell ring. Standing on the other side was Madison, her younger sister. No makeup. None of the usual attitude. Just a tired girl with puffy eyes clutching a worn canvas bag. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Madison asked, her voice trembling. Chloe hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready. But then, she opened the door. They sat facing each other in the small living room. The silence stretched on. There was no tension, but no warmth either. Just enough stillness for Madison to finally speak. I know I was wrong. I don't have an excuse. The necklace? I didn't think it would go that far." Chloe watched her sister. She didn't feel angry anymore. Just a deep sadness for something that should never have happened between two people who used to be close. Madison's voice cracked. "I got so used to being the one who needed help. Everyone treated me that way, and I thought, you'd always be there to clean it up. When Mom and Dad believed me over you, I felt powerful, and I used it." It was the first time Chloe had ever heard her sister own up to her actions without justifications. Madison reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She placed it on the table. "This is what I've saved from working part-time these past few months. It's not much, but it's sincere. I want to pay you back. Even just a little." Chloe didn't touch the envelope. She simply looked at Madison, then gave a quiet nod. "Thank you. Not for the money, but for coming here and saying that." There were no dramatic tears, no forgiveness declared. But in the quiet that followed, something began to shift, a kind of understanding, not built on blood, but on the courage to face the harm one has caused. Chloe would remember that moment not because Madison apologized, but because she herself had learned how to listen without carrying the weight again. She didn't fall back into old roles. She didn't erase what happened, but she made a small space in her heart not to reconnect, but to rebuild if the other person was truly willing. Chloe never expected a perfect ending. She didn't wait for full apologies or dramatic reconciliations. After everything, she didn't need anyone to say sorry or wrap her in a warm embrace. The only thing she wanted was simple to be seen as a person, not a provider. A few weeks after Madison's visit, her parents reached out as well. Their words were softer than before, but laced with avoidance. "We all made mistakes," her father said. "We're family. We should just move on." But Chloe didn't agree. Moving on is not the same as taking responsibility. Forgiveness is not the same as respect. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand a reckoning. She just said calmly, "I don't need your forgiveness. But from now on, I do need your respect as an adult, not a child expected to carry everyone." There was silence on the other end. Long. Uncomfortable. But this time Chloe knew they were really listening. She didn't move back in. She didn't resume her role as the one who held everything together. Instead, Chloe chose to live fully on her own terms, with clear boundaries and a self-worth stitched together from the brokenness she had finally healed. She still saw Madison sometimes. Not often. No pressure. They weren't what they once were, but they didn't need to be. They were building something new, as two grown women who had hurt each other and decided not to repeat it. As for her parents, Chloe kept a respectful distance, not to punish them, but to protect herself. She sent birthday cards, holiday wishes, but she no longer stepped into the role of the one who gives without limits. One crisp autumn afternoon, Chloe stood on the balcony of her small apartment. The leaves were falling, the wind cool, but she wasn't lonely. She held a cup of tea, and in her chest was a quiet peace she had never known before. She didn't need forgiveness. She just needed respect. And for the first time in her life, that began to happen not because the world changed, but because she had changed how she lived in it.